Here's another little line from Carl Jung. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. I'll read it again. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. And I think my follow-up question is, how? How do you make the unconscious conscious? What is that process like? And what are kind of the dangers and opportunities that lurk in this kind of terrain? And is that what we mean by growing up, by even, to sound real spiritual-ish, becoming conscious? And I want to talk a bit about that again today through the language of dreams. And I have another podcast about dreams where I work with another friend of mine. We work a dream. It's a long dream, really. And so our conversation, our back and forth, takes about an hour. It takes the time it takes, and we didn't really put any constraints on it. So I invite you to, sit back and let yourself experience the dream as you're hearing it, and as I'm listening, and allowing the dreamer here to deepen into the experience. And so that's where I'm going today. I guess this is part 2 of on dreams here, and this Sunday my 4-week course on dreams starts, and there's still a couple of spots open. So if you're a last minute kind of person, or you're just bumping into this podcast and you have time, and we'll be meeting just for 4 weeks, 3 p.m. Eastern time. We'll meet over Zoom. And if you can't make a meeting, we will record them, but we'll be talking about the nature of dreams and working with them, and really working with as many as we can in our little 2-hour window on Sundays. And I'm really looking forward to it. So those details are on my website, kentdobson.com. And thanks for supporting me. Thanks for listening to this podcast, Hints and Guesses. And I don't want to say a whole lot more here at the beginning, but maybe a little bit of a bridge between the intro here and the actual listening to the dream. Back to the question of making the unconscious conscious, and if you fail to do so, you'll call it fate. Like how? Well, I'll give you some examples. Like when you keep falling in love with the same kind of person, though you swear you'll never do it again, or you end a relationship and only to begin a relationship that over time takes on, very similar patterns. Or you end up working for the same kinds of people, or finding yourself in the same kinds of ethical and moral dilemmas inside your work environment again and again and again. Like, what is happening? You can just continue to blame the outside world, or you can begin to wonder about what's under the surface here, what's under the hood. Or maybe, speaking of holidays, repeating the same roles in your family again and again, the same patterns. You keep showing up in the same kinds of ways. Though you swear on one level, you'll not show up like this, and you'll not follow into the same habits. You just do in some way. It's still unconscious. And if you even know what role you're playing in your family, that's a whole nother level. Some of us are, myself included, so unconscious about our habits and patterns, we're not even aware that we're playing a role inside our family systems. And you swear you're nothing like your parent, and only to have it mirrored back to you how much you are like your parent. These are just really everyday examples of the way in which things remain unconscious, direct our life, and then we call it fate. We call it just, that's just the way it is. And what Jung is saying is that that part of growing up is being invited to make some of that unconscious and unknown material more conscious, to chew on it, to consume it, to be with it, to let it have an effect on how we see the world. And see, dreams are a great place to start, because you go to bed at night and you don't get to say, the ego doesn't get to say, the waking conscious self, who you think you are, your Enneagram number, your Myers-Briggs, whatever, doesn't have a say in what comes out of the unconscious, out of the depths of the ocean of the unconscious realm. They just come to us, and they call to us from the other side, so to speak, saying, here's an opportunity. Here's a bridge between worlds. Here's a bridge between what you know and what you don't know. And working with dreams is going out to the middle of that bridge and meeting what comes from the darkness and from the unknown. I don't necessarily mean dark in terms of negative, but and dreams in particular challenge our waking conscious, our sense of what we're good at and what we're not, and how we want the world to go. And just boom, out of the depth of sleep, our framework is challenged if we'll let it. Our ego, in other words, is challenged. So yeah, again, let's listen to another dream. Special thanks to a friend of mine who came on. We were trying to make it anonymous. She does say her name partway through, which is fine. But we'll just kind of keep it mysterious. And I encourage you to listen with a kind of softness, not like the peering, rational, interrogating mind that we can all fall into. Who is this? What's going on? What can I figure out? There's nothing to figure out here. We're just relaxing into the language of dreams here, and letting it rise up for both of us and affect us. And you'll see that over time, this dream does in fact bring a kind of treasures come out of the deep here, and you'll see the way in which the actual dream images and what appears to be the invitation of the dream does affect the dreamer. And yeah, I just feel honored. I'm so honored when I get to sit with people anyway and work with dreams. So I'm honored to do so here. I'm not going to make an outro. So let me just add three things here. The first is, if you're interested, you can always contact me. And if you have a lot of dreams and are curious about them, contact me. We can set up some sessions. Or you could, check out my DreamWork course, if you're a last minute person here. Or a great book, one of my favorites, is by Robert Bosnak, A Little Course in Dreams, it's called. Excellent book, and also very practical. So that's a sort of pathway I'd encourage you down if you have an interest in dreams. Even if you say to yourself right now, I'm not much of a dreamer, that can change just, in, I was going to say in the blink of an eye, it sounded like too corny, but kind of like that, yeah. Just by saying, hey, I'd like to remember my dreams. I'd like to pay attention to the unconscious, and I'd like for it to become a little more conscious. Yeah, even that kind of intention can open that pathway without even much effort, and maybe even the opposite of just relaxing our effort. And finally, maybe just a suggestion, just start recording your dreams and see if in some way you can't enter the dream scene in the morning. Just in those few quiet moments, like let it happen to you, and you'll see more or less that's what I'm doing with this particular dreamer. So, and again, thanks for tuning in. You're in for a treat. If you've, got to be in a certain mood, I think, to listen to a long dream like this, but I hope there'll be a kind of richness, and I hope it will, stir around in your own stuff. So, all right. See you down the road. Thanks for trying this. Thanks for making time and trying this little experiment. Okay, before we get going, I thought maybe just I want to invite you just to close your eyes here and relax and sort of like forget about, um, what you've thought about this dream up to this point, or what you think it might be about, or even the anxiety of not knowing what it's about. Just kind of relax. Like here we are, just together here in Colorado, and I'm here in Georgia, and just a couple breaths. And when you feel sort of like, all right, relaxed, and just take me into the beginning of the dream.
Mm. So I am with my partner Nick, and we are on the coast of California, and we're like trying to find a restaurant to eat lunch at. And Nick says, "I want to go to the Jungian Cafe. Um, it's a burger joint." And I'm aware that it's in San Diego. It's a bit too far for us to go there. We're not that close to San Diego, and but we start driving down the coast anyway, and we see on the coast this old seafood hut restaurant that I recognize. I've been there before. It's kind of like the local spot, not fancy. Just kind of like a big open room that serves fresh seafood. And we go in. We know we're not going to eat there because Nick is not interested in eating there, but we go in anyway because I want to check it out. And it's kind of like bumbling, it's really packed. And I catch sight of this table filled with older women who are really interesting looking. They're like kind of glowing. Um, and they're just kind of like, yeah, just chit-chatting and eating big bowls of seafood. And I'm quite like enamored by them, and I go up to their table and I'm like, "Can you guys tell me um your beauty tip? Like, is it because you eat so much fish, fresh fish?" Um, they're very interesting looking. They're kind of almost look like they're like mixed race, like maybe like Japanese American, and have very like radiant cheeks with freckles on them. Um, anyway, and they kind of like giggle at me. It's like a little awkward that I went and said that, but they are like receiving me sweetly. And then we turn out and we're walking out back towards the door, and Nick asks someone for a recommendation of a seafood restaurant that's a bit more inland. And he gets a recommendation from this person, and he gets really excited. He all of a sudden is like in go mode to go to this restaurant. I'm following behind him back towards the car. And Nick gets in the car, a black like SUV car, and he drives away without me. And I'm like, oh, like how kind of silly. He's so excited that he forgot. Um, and like surely he'll realize I'm not in the car pretty soon and turn around. So I start walking down this road after him, anticipating him turning around at any moment. And I'm walking down the side of this road, um, and increasingly, like the scene shifts into night, and I'm walking down the side of this like pretty big highway, and Nick still hasn't turned around. And I'm walking, and then all of a sudden I kind of like enter an underpass, maybe like where one highway goes underneath and another one goes above. And it's dark now. It's very dark. And I'm kind of like I'm maybe in the more of like a urban setting now. And underneath this underpass. There are like houseless people. My assumption is houseless people like milling about. Um, like some people kind of like in the corner or like resting up against the pavement. And in the center of this underpass, there's one person sitting on the ground, and there's some things around him, like maybe some body parts and some vomit. And I'm getting a little more agitated. I'm like, where is Nick? Like, I shouldn't be here. Um, and I keep walking through, and then this underpass almost kind of shifts into like an underground transport center or something. And there's more and more people, and um, I continue to feel like a more and more afraid and uncomfortable. And at one point, I hear people, like either people talking really loudly or even maybe on a loudspeaker, people start talking about loyal soldiers. And in the dream, I'm like, wow, that's so interesting that they're talking about that. I wonder if they are talking about loyal soldiers in the way that I think of loyal soldiers, or if they're talking about loyal soldiers like external loyal soldiers. And anyway, I'm like, all this time I'm getting more and more agitated. Like, wow, I should not be here. I'm so surprised that Nick hasn't discovered that I'm gone and come looking for me yet. And I'm starting to kind of feel like threatened, like my life is um in danger and that I shouldn't be there. Maybe even in some way like the loyal soldiers are looking for me or something like that. And yeah, the voices are like the loyal soldiers are coming. And I realize in that moment that I have this kind of like superpower or this skill that I've used before in dreams. Like I remember in this dream that I've done this before in dreams. That if I breathe at a certain cadence, like really focus on my breath, I can actually float. I can float and then hover above whatever scene is below me. And so I do that. I like focus on my breath and I kind of begin to float above the scene. And I'm trying to like get out the door of this underground transport center. And I like float out of the doors and I'm looking for Nick. I'm like, surely he's parked and he's somewhere, still looking for him. And I never find him. And I wake up.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, quite a dream here. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, beautiful. Thank you. Thanks for sharing, and let's go back through it. Yeah, this opening scene, you're with Nick and you're on the coast, and um you know what? How's that feel to you? I mean, is this a place you like to be? Like, what's the mood? What's the atmosphere like?
Mm. Yeah, I do like it. I'm like I want to eat at the seafood restaurant. I don't ever like say that, but I sense that feels like yeah, almost like I can actually like feel the breeze and like smell the ocean and the um kind of the fishy smell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you not want to go to this Jungian cafe, this burger joint? Is that just kind of, or is that just like a suggestion and the dream kind of just moves on from that? What's the
Yeah,
feeling
that's
there?
kind of just a suggestion, and I guess the dream moves on because then he ends up asking for a recommendation for a seafood restaurant, but a different one that's more inland.
Yeah. Yeah, and so Nick here, um, he's not interested in eating in this initial cafe you go to. Like, can you describe more about him? Like, what's he like in the dream and how are you different?
Mm. He is, yeah, it's interesting. I don't actually like really have like even an image of him. It's more just like knowing he's there, but he is, yeah, he's kind of on a mission. He's like, I want to go to this place, then doesn't even really consider this place, which to me feels like um in a way like the obvious spot. It's like the locals are there. It's kind of like bumbling. It's a bit more like um lively, like fresh.
Hmm.
Um it's on the coast. It's kind of like old school.
Yeah.
Um
What kind of mission? What kind of mission? Like a mission to what? Like what kind of experience is he after?
yeah. I'm not so sure. Maybe something like a little more predictable or familiar. Um, um,
Like mainstream? Is that kind of
yeah,
what?
like maybe a little bit more mainstream. Yeah.
Yeah. And do you have a feeling about this? Does this annoy you, or is it just kind of like, oh, well, matter of fact, or how do you feel about him, about
Well,
the mission here, and
in the dream, I actually feel like kind of matter of fact about it. Maybe I feel maybe like sad, like I'm aware. I'm like, oh, but this, I love this spot. But I'm not like too bothered by it. I'm like, okay, yeah, sure, we can. I'll follow your lead. We can go to this other place.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you see these women and um yeah, you did a beautiful job of describing them, almost mixed race and kind of radiant and glowing and eating these seafood bowls, and just try to let this scene happen to you a little more here and kind of be in their presence. And what happens to you in being in the presence of women like these women here?
Mm. I just feel I feel like I want to hang out with them. I want to like learn from them. I want to like swim in the same um water. Something like what are you guys up to? How are you still so vibrant?
Hmm.
They're like older and just seem they have so much vitality in them. And yeah, I feel inspired and curious. There's also like some mysteriousness. Um,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
really look at their cheeks here, their radiant cheeks and their vitality, and try to let that like affect you in some way, or allow yourself to be affected by such radiance. And what happens to you? Like imagine that their radiant cheeks are touching your cheeks in some way, and what happens to you?
Mm. Yeah, I'm seeing their cheeks almost like if I really focus in on the freckles, it's almost like stars. Um, and uh, there's like a vastness and kind of like a spark or something. Like I'm like I can almost like feel some like some sort of kinship maybe. Like I like recognize that spark and also I'm um mm, like called forth by it.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, and while you're here, just feeling that kind of calling, just, I mean, you could even imagine your own cheeks, your own freckled cheeks like stars like this. And um, See if you can feel that from the inside, this kind of radiance and mystery, and tell me if you notice anything.
Oh, there was just a wave of like some sort of um like tears. I guess maybe it's like, yeah, that mixture of grief and gratitude, but something of like the beauty of the beauty of them and like how it's impacting me.
Mhm.
I don't know, like um something so precious about it and like um maybe like scarce or something like that. Like I'm almost like hmm, I think, well, an emotion that's coming up for me too, that's maybe not necessarily in the dream, but something like, oh, I'm like grieving for the moments that I don't feel that, like the moments where that's not as available to me, which in some ways has felt familiar in my life recently.
Yeah. Like, can you say what your longing is here?
Um, yeah, a longing for just feeling so close to a sense of vitality and radiance that's like sourced from something much vaster and mysterious and like
Mm.
something that these women are um, tapped into and that I have known and I'm wanting to be like in more consistent contact with.
Yeah. Yeah. And just imagine here for a moment, like try to put yourself in their seat here, and even imagine here drinking from these. Were they drinking from these seafood bowls or using a spoon, or I guess it doesn't matter. Like try to feel into that and feel into the consuming of this.
Mm.
What happens here?
Mm. Yeah, it feels like when I'm like looking at this seafood soup, it's it's both like really delicious looking and also like kind of gross, kind of
Mhm.
uh um like I love it and also it's like it's not like eating candy or something.
Mhm.
It's like um kind of uh, feral or something wild. Kind of like the textures are like I kind of have to like swallow it. But it's so nourishing. Like it feels like I'm kind of like just swallowing life into my body.
Yeah. Do that. Do that here. Just stay with that and swallow that life into your body and the kind of
Mm.
rawness of and feralness of this particular soup, and let it like go into your core, and
Mm. Mm.
What's that feel like?
Mm, feels grounding. Um, there's a way it feels soothing, enlivening, yeah. But also in a very like almost kind of like like homey. It feels homey.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Try to stay in this kind of homey and grounding place, having been nourished by this kind of mysterious seafood bowl, and we'll role play a little bit, and I'm you, and you're kind of these women, and so I'm going to ask you, what are your beauty tips, and what would you say?
Mm. Well, I'll just share like the second you kind of switched those roles, I immediately like saw Dream Emma, Dream Me. Oh, said my name. Um, yeah, with just like such delight from the perspective of these women.
Yeah, yeah. Tell me more about that. Like, if you can stay with that.
Yeah, kind of like, yeah, like cheering on, like, yeah, like drink the soup. Like, um, kind of hopeful actually. Like, yes, like here's one who who wants to do this, who's kind of like being nourished by the same thing.
Uh, yeah.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, and just to come back to the question, maybe there's nothing here, but I was just asking in a kind of playful way, like, well, what are your tips here? Or is that the tip? Drink.
Hmm. I kind of want to, it's something kind of like what's coming is something like you know the secret. Like you've got the secret. You just have to keep saying yes to it, keep doing it. Like you're recognizing it because um yeah.
Yeah. Something like you already have it.
Yeah.
You already know this. There's nothing to say to you here. You
Hmm.
know. Yeah.
Hmm.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if yeah, thanks for deepening into this part of the dream. And then if I remember correctly, Nick wants a more inland restaurant. And and I guess that's okay with you. And he's kind of gets excited about this new mission of finding this inland restaurant, and he's walking out to the black SUV. And are you feeling anything as you're having to leave this scene of the women, or in the dream? Are you feeling anything at this moment?
Mostly I kind of just I feel like delighted by that encounter. I'm not feeling like, oh, I don't want to leave or like, yeah, it's something kind of like I'm feeling maybe resourced and just kind of like, oh, like, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and so sure enough, as dreams tend to go, Nick leaves you on the side of the road here. And and yeah, you're walking, and it's getting dark. Night is coming, and you have to enter this underpass. And at least I could feel as you were first telling the dream, there's a shift like from day to night here, and even some kind of, I guess, what would be sort of natural fears, like seem kind of like a growing danger here, just it being night. Am I right in that sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, and so then you see these houseless people is what you call them, and and even body parts and vomit. And what's your what's your reaction around as you're beginning to look around you and see what this place is actually like?
Well, one thing that's interesting to me is throughout like the the beginning of this part where I'm walking along the road, I'm feeling actually kind of like maybe even kind of casual about it. Like I'm like, okay, like just walking along the road, like I'm not even mad at Nick. I'm like, but I'm actually kind of it's kind of like cute. It's almost endearing that he was like so excited about this restaurant that he just left and like definitely he's gonna come back. I can trust that you know, he's gonna be like, oh my God, I don't have Emma in the car. Um, but yeah, when it starts to shift, like the shift into night it almost happens at the same time as like it becomes a bit more urban feeling. And um yeah, at first I'm kind of just like curiously observing. Like I'm noticing, okay, it's darker, and now I'm like in this kind of like mix of highways. I'm like under a road. There's just like pavement all around. And um yeah, there's like a handful of people scattered about. And once I yeah, there is some fear arising. There's also sadness of just like, oh yeah, like this is here. Um a lack of familiarity, like I'm not as exposed to this reality. Um,
Yeah. It's kind of unfamiliar to you in a way.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
unfamiliar. And yeah, at first I feel like I'm like able to kind of like neutrally observe it. Like I don't immediately feel threatened. Like I don't actually think that, yeah, these people are like out to get me or something. I'm just like watching them in their lives. And then yeah, and then it starts to shift. It's like I see the body parts and the vomit, and that makes me feel like a little cringy, um, kind of like a little like, yeah, um,
Hmm.
irritated, I guess.
What are
And
you wearing? What are you wearing here? Like, how are you dressed? How are other people dressed? Do you have any awareness of that?
I don't actually.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what I'm wearing, but the others, it's like kind of dark. It's dark, so I can't, but it's kind of, yeah, I want to say like raggedy. Um, and then, but then it almost, yeah, then I mentioned like after I see this person in the center and there's the like potential vomit and maybe even some body parts. Um, I keep like walking through and then it almost is like I find myself in a more crowded um like underground transport center, maybe like a bit of a subway station.
Hmm. And
And
that people are coming and going. That's what you mean by,
yeah, and then there's more people and coming and going. It's more diverse. It's not just like people who are posted up under the bridge at night. It's like people are moving and going and um, like dressed in all sorts of different ways. And but I actually almost even feel like more agitated by that combination of like, yeah. And then it's then that I hear on the, yeah, I kind of I'm more and more, it's almost like I'm in between these scenes, almost like in front of me, there's like a lot of people,
mhm.
there's this transport center, and then like behind me, there's this underpass and these houseless people. And more, I'm kind of like, I shouldn't be here. Like,
Where should you be? Well, you should be where? I shouldn't be here. I'm the kind of person that should be where.
it's not necessarily like focused on where I should be. It's almost kind of like I don't know how to be here. Like I don't know if I'm safe here because I don't I feel I feel kind of like unequipped to be here. Like um yeah, like I feel there's like
Yeah.
some danger because I don't know what to do if someone were to approach me, like I just kind of am like, oh man, like I don't know. I don't know about being here. And
Well, slow down here for a second
yeah.
and just try to feel that, try to let that feeling of, um, I don't really belong here. I don't know how to be here. This is not the right environment for me, and I'm not sure what I'm doing here. And just try to let that grow a little bit. And can you tell me, like, is that a familiar feeling to you, or where's that feeling reside, and what's it do to you?
Mm. I feel kind of like in this moment, I feel kind of squirmy, almost like um this is a little embarrassing, but like I remember some of the first times I ever smoked marijuana, which was like a long time ago in high school, like feeling quite paranoid, maybe like almost like I'm feeling like maybe everyone is like aware of how much I'm standing out or something. Like there's kind of like eyes on me.
Yeah,
And I'm because of that, I feel like I would be like I would be like an easy target for something.
for what? What kind of target?
I don't
Advantage of, or to make fun of, or what?
know, maybe more like, I mean, in this specific case, maybe like for getting robbed or for like,
Yeah.
um, yeah, I don't quite know like if there's a specific threat I'm feeling. It's more just like, um, yeah, I'm not quite sure. Maybe even like ganged up on or
Yeah. Let's play with this just a little bit. Um, let's imagine this is an experience that you have some familiarity with, and the dream is kind of taking you a little closer to it. This kind of feeling of being out of place and maybe a bit paranoid, and eyes are on you, you're not sure what to do. And um, well, how do you respond? Like, what would you do to in this kind of situation? What's your strategy here for what happens when you're feeling uncomfortable like this? Do you know?
um well, my first response was to say I'd probably just leave.
Mhm.
And in a way, I kind of do that in the dream.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's what what you're picking up on here. This because right away over the loudspeakers, there's an announcement that or something that people are talking about loyal soldiers. And okay, so do you actually have a sense? You said something interesting in the first telling that you were wondering, like, I wonder if they think about loyal soldiers in the way that I think about them. Well, one,
I was like, um, I, in the dream, I kind of like, I noted it and almost kind of like giggled about it in the dream. I was like, that's so weird. They're talking about loyal soldiers. Like, I wonder if they're talking about, like, I wonder if they know about like the maps and models of Animus. Like, I wonder if they're talking about those types of loyal soldiers. And then I'm like, well, probably not. I think they're talking about like a different type of loyal soldier or something. And then I start to get worried, almost like, well, there's whatever kind of loyal soldiers, they're like coming for me.
yeah, yeah, they're looking for you.
They're looking for me.
As if to do what? As if what are they up to? Do you have any sense for that?
Mm. Yeah, I don't know, like to take me away or um yeah, I'm not quite sure. Almost like almost feels kind of like just something like we found ya or like we got you, like we see you.
Yeah, pretty much the definition of a loyal soldier.
Yeah.
They're not going to really give up their task here. And somewhere in the midst of this, you remember or recognize that you have this kind of superpower skill
Hmm.
that has something to do with your breathing. And so I want to invite you to kind of do that now here. Like try to breathe in the way that you think this superpower breathes and kind of like let let yourself experience this capacity to float above. And when you're feeling it, just let me in and tell me what that's like.
I'm aware that it takes a lot of focus, like a lot of focus on my breath. Like, but it's also like pretty easeful. Like I'm kind of amazed. I'm like, oh yeah, I can just like breathe myself out of this. Um,
Mhm.
and yeah, I just kind of like slowly like hover above the scene. I'm kind of like up by the ceiling, like out of reach of any of the people down there, the potential loyal soldiers. And yeah, there's still, I guess, like some vulnerability to it in the sense that, well, one, I'm still kind of like, where's Nick? Like, I'm still kind of like looking for him. And then two, I'm also aware that I really have to keep the same breathing pattern. Like, I can't slip up
Mhm.
or else I could fall back down to the ground.
Do you know what this breathing pattern is like, or is that a thought? Like, can you actually breathe in that way as we're
Yeah.
sitting?
Yeah.
Yeah, do it a few times and tell me a little bit about it.
I mean, it's mainly just like deep rhythmic breathing, like focused, mindful, um, kind of like meditative,
Mhm.
long inhales and long exhales.
Does it feel like a superpower to you as you're doing it right now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, Not as an escape route, but as a presence route.
Mhm. You do feel more present when you're doing that. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm. And from the dream scene, you're kind of above and you're noticing what? What are you noticing down below you? And
Um, well, I definitely like just noticed the distance. It's interesting because in the dream I'm almost like I don't have like a huge sense of like my body. It's more just like I'm looking down, like my vision is looking down at the scene below me, and it's just like the same scene. Maybe it feels a little less, yeah, it feels a little less like chaotic or scary, maybe even like a bit slower when I'm looking down from above.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, from this place, I want you to, if you can, try to bring in these women from the seafood restaurant into the space, like into your awareness. And I'm curious about what it's like when they're near you and how might they feel or about this capacity that you have or just what happens when you bring them into the field.
Mm-hmm. Mm. I'm noticing in my body almost like I'm kind of like in the beginning I'm kind of like flying. I'm like looking down kind of my body parallel to the ground below me. Kind of like yeah, face down. And when I invite them to this scene, one, I like start to feel my body more, and it's almost like my body just kind of like slowly like shifts to a more vertical
Hmm.
position. Um,
What does that do to you? Like if you're in a more vertical position, therefore what? Like how is
well, I feel more like kind of grounded for sure. Kind of like, oh, like a little more relaxed.
Mhm.
Um, I don't, it's kind of like they're around me and they're just like with me and looking at me. I don't really feel much, uh, almost kind of yeah, they're just like neutrally kind of like, oh, you're
Mhm.
doing this thing and almost kind of like just holding space for me to like find myself again.
Mhm. Does that feel right to you?
Yeah. Um, hmm. Guess it's kind of hard to know if this is like, yeah, maybe my mind is a little active right now, but it's almost in a way it feels a little kind of confronting, not necessarily in a bad way, but like almost in a sweet way.
Mhm.
Um, I'm like a little more vertical now, and I'm kind of like, oh, like, hmm, that was interesting. Um, and then these ladies are just kind of around me being like, yeah.
Mhm.
And it's interesting because I'm like, I'm not going back down and I'm kind of like, yeah, I'm still just, we're kind of like in our own little world up here.
Mhm.
I don't get the sense, I don't get like a pressure from them to like make a decision, but I can feel maybe a little bit of like, what's the next move? Like, where do I go from here?
Yeah, well, you tell me. I mean, where do you go from here? Like, if it's slightly but lovingly confrontive, what's the move is what? And maybe you don't know, and that's fine.
Mhm. there's a part of me for sure that's like, I wanna like go back down there. Maybe you all could even come with me and we can just like walk through the freaking transport center like a normal person and like make our way. And there's also a little part of me that's like, eh, I don't know. I don't know about that. Like, I don't even know where that leads to.
Yeah, because well, you'd prefer what? I mean, in this case, to just stay up here in a way.
Mm, not necessarily. It's a little awkward being up here with all these ladies looking at me.
Yeah.
Um, that's good. That's a good point.
Yeah. Maybe we could actually leave it there in a sense. Like, I mean, I want to talk a bit about this dream with you, but maybe we can just leave it in this kind of like hanging here, so to speak.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, I don't want to push it one way or the other. I don't know. I don't know. Um, but there does seem to did there seem to be a kind of um coming together of worlds between the world of these women and the kind of place that you found yourself in, the superpower and the underground transport. Did it feel like those worlds were coming together a bit?
Yeah, it did a little bit. And um, yeah, almost kind of like the ladies uh were kind of like, yeah, we can be here. We're kind of unfazed by this. It's not like typically where we hang out, but
Mm,
uh, yeah, they weren't like they weren't needing to escape it in the same way. I don't sense. Um, one thing I'll just note, and when you ask like where to go from here, there's part of me that's like one option is like, well, I wish I could just like teleport back to the table in the restaurant with these ladies and just drink the seafood and
mhm,
blow.
mhm.
And then there's also like the option of like, well, like, can't I just like find Nick and get in the car with Nick? And like, where's Nick? Where's the car? And then there's also the option of like going back down to the ground and um continuing I guess the mystery of like, I don't exactly know where I am and where it's leading and when Nick might, if I might run into Nick again. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, maybe we could just try just very quick a little imagination experiment and see if you can put your feet on the ground again in the transport center. Just your feet are on the ground and you're kind of between the hustle and bustle of people coming and going, and then behind you is this kind of like overpasses and strange people and um yeah, just try to stand there um and see if you can uh bring into your body and your awareness this kind of nourishing bowl of seafood and kind of which is a little uncomfortable but also kind of nourishing and right, and just kind of let that be in your body as you're standing here and see if it changes the way you're standing here.
It's almost like I can, yeah, I'm back on the ground and it does change how I'm able to stand here. I feel like way more in my body and um yeah, I guess maybe more like placed. I can like see myself. I can see myself in
Mm,
in the scene.
mm.
Um
What are you feeling?
I'm feeling like massive amounts of heartbreak
Mm.
and grief. Um oh, yeah, like almost uh maybe maybe a little more. Yeah, it's still uncomfortable, but in a different way, I would say. It's like a little, yeah, I'm like seeing myself standing, um, feeling myself, seeing myself, and almost kind of like I have now the same kind of like radiant cheeks and that sort of uh, vitality or glow.
Mm.
And um, it feels a little uncomfortable to have that in this scene, just generally. And um, I don't, yeah, there's like a part of me that's like wishes I could like give everyone or even like the underpass itself, like some of this soup, some of this seafood.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. And what are those tears about?
Um, well, maybe some of the tears are like one that's like impossible or maybe not mine to do or maybe not even the right thing to do like uh I don't exactly know what the tears are about. It's just some
Yeah.
sort of like heartbreak.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, you don't need to know what they're about. Um, yeah. Um, what's the dream invitation? I mean, I think I have some suggestions, but what is the dream here inviting you to carry forward, to embody, to be with, to allow?
Oh, you're asking me to take a go at answering that?
Yeah, I am actually asking you to take a go.
Uh,
And the answer is I don't know. I have some suggestions.
yeah. Um, I think I feel a sense that I fear that this dream in a way is kind of like a node on a much bigger thread or invitation that's something like um learning how to an invitation for me to continue um growing my capacity and my courage to be able to like maintain and um expose maybe some of this seafood soup nourishment and magic maybe in places that are like harder to do that.
Mhm.
Like the restaurant with the women, that's like easy. Um
Mhm.
in a way. And there's something really beautiful about that. It's like resourcing. It's like, oh, like yeah, we're a crew. There's like old women that are doing this and
Yeah, but
um
Nick's got other plans. He wants to go inland.
mhm,
Yeah,
mhm.
yeah,
And
I feel that.
yeah, and then like in the underpass, I'm like totally disconnected. Like I've like forgotten about that. Um, that and I'm actually just like consumed by fear and want to escape.
Yeah, yeah. Which in some ways, I mean, this is maybe a layer of interpretation using the rubrics and mo maps and models that we both know. But yeah, I mean, it's a reminder that the loyal soldiers, particularly this capacity to escape, it's not going to go anywhere. It doesn't matter how far you go on the path or
Mhm.
how deeply in conversation with your own depths and your own soul goes, you know. They're still there doing their strategies, and apparently you have an escape button here.
Mhm.
That's the way it strikes me. And the women, interestingly enough, aren't particularly judgmental about it. And that's something maybe on your own you can think a bit about. What are my loyal soldiers? I mean, just go again at the material, at
Mhm.
like, can I name them, and do I escape, and in what way, and what's the difference between a vertical body and a horizontal body, or where is my body is kind of also a theme. And so you could wonder, like, all right, in my various ways I escape, where's my body in this? And the women are quite gentle about this because it is a superpower. That's what's funny about all strategies. It is a kind of superpower, and it probably can serve you well in some way to be present, but also transcend a given circumstance. That can serve you well, or it can be a massive escape button, you know, or maybe it's a little bit of both. But yeah, I resonate with what you're saying about the the seafood and to whom it might be given, or something like that. And but I'll make it a little bit more simple on one level, because I was sensing that a big part of the dream invitation is to feel your own radiance, and to feel the I'm not trying to sound fancy, but like the transpersonal nature of nourishment. Like you're you're being nourished by these dream women and by women in general and by stories and heartbreaks and um, generations and you're also, because you're just alive in the modern world, feel the absence of these kinds of the archetype that we're talking about, but also just the real presence of women and or men for that matter who have this kind of nourishing quality to them, or whatever, you could go in about 100 different directions, but um, so that was a long-winded way of saying, well, if I can give you like some practice is to stand like this, stand like you were just standing and feel yourself nourished and uh, let yourself be surprised by the circumstances in which that capacity could be realized. Because
Mhm.
that's what's funny about the dream. Because you're sort of saying like, not here. You've forgotten all about the, seafood restaurant. So definitely not here. And you're on, that's what you're saying. You're like, I'm hoping to find the courage and capacity to carry this into other places. Is it resonating with what I'm saying? Are you
Mhm.
resonating with what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, yeah, it's close to home too. I mean, I live in like a very remote kind of magical canyon, as you know, and I just got back from traveling in the San Francisco Bay area, Palo Alto, and was kind of like way more in this realm of uh convention and city and just a reality that yeah, I don't have a lot of exposure to in my everyday life. And so I think some of it is like actually really quite relevant to day world
Mhm.
tensions as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else you want to say as we kind of close this, and then I'll stop the recording here and we can chat for a second. Anything else that's just arising here and in the field, having let this dream have an effect on you over the last hour, really?
Mhm. Well, guess I can say that one of the things that most surprised me is how much emotion came up uh, when asked to kind of stand there again with this nourishment and radiance and um, yeah, something like really let myself be impacted by both um, the realization of that kind of like that kind of possibility, that kind of radiance um, situated in these times in a kind of heartbreaking world.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, thanks for that.
Yeah. Thank you.